To be fair, it's an absolute honour to be invited and asked, especially since this is the very first time I ever share a stage with Benjamin Dix. It's just a huge honour. I can't wait for it to be. To be fair with you, I think it's bigger than the festival. It's more about the region. It's about the world. It's being given an opportunity to speak and be able to tell, or be able to be part of the creative process of being part of the voice of people who are usually voiceless, in a way that connects the world. The visual language, something that is quite international. So it's a huge honor to be able to do that, not just through the drawing process, but also through communicating through language and speaking to people directly and accepting questions and exchanging in that way. I'm extremely honored. To be fair, at the moment I've worked on a range of different projects with positive negatives. I've done an animation, I've done very short stories, I've done illustrations based on prompts for different issues. Each one of those had its own challenges. However, the one that I am enjoying by far the most is the one that I'm currently working on, because it allowed for the process for me to directly be involved with the young people whose stories that I am covering. So to be able to directly speak to them, interact with them, and take their stories and form from it a narrative that is longer lasting. So instead of just being given, you must tell the story within 3 pages or within 10, you are told you can tell the story in however way you wish, as long as it needs to be in order to feel natural, in order to be the most engaging it can be. So for me, at the moment, I'm just having an absolute blast doing something like this. To be fair, because of the way that I draw, it's in a manga style, so this is a very Japanese medium of artistic language. And a lot of people are really puzzled and surprised when I tell them that for us, I was born in Libya and I spent the first 7 years of my life there. So at the time, Arab countries had like a very robust diet of cartoons or animation solely from Japan that was dubbed over in Arabic. But the thing is, it was some of the best stories in the world, the classics. So Anne of Green Gables, Little Women, Tom Sawyer, that they changed into animated series. That was what initially really had me interested in the genre, because the stories were amazing, of course, internationally acclaimed. And then I later found out when I went to Scotland that they were based on books, so it's not just animation. Those stories were available in the medium of books. And it was the first time for me drawing, when I started drawing in that style, it allowed me to communicate on a level unprecedented before for me, that allowed me to connect with my peers. Whereas before I used to be like bullied or an outcast, the minute that I started drawing, that suddenly crossed a boundary and an understanding and respect was suddenly formed. So I thought, if this happens in school, how far can it go? So that's why I decided to just explore it further. Of course, there are many other reasons that then shaped it into something bigger or deeper. Other graphic novels and stories are Spiegelman's Mouse, Marjane Satrapi's Persepolis. Each one adds an extra little ingredient that offers a larger horizon for me to aim into. And that's what, in the end, ultimately pushed me into considering this as a serious contender in order to be as a language to connect with people and bridge gaps between different communities and cultures. It's a really interesting question, because for the vast majority of my, I guess, career, at the beginning I was working from personal stories, taking as a springboard either my own personal experiences, my family's, or diving slightly deeper but still within my own culture, going into Libyan or Arab folk tales, into our culture, into icons. But then it occurred to me one day, what is it ever possible for me to be able to provide this artistic voice to people who do not have it, but people whose stories I don't know intimately? Is it ever possible to do that? And that was the part where then I started working with Ben, and I realized that yes, it is possible. If you have access to people, if you speak to them in a way that honors their voices, their stories, if you give them so much input and direction as part of the story, that you get to know them intimately. You get to know, you're true to the images that represent them, their society, their setting. And then you can draw something that not only empowers them, but actually amplifies their voice far and wide, maybe beyond what they would have thought, whilst at the same time being entertaining. The best thing about it for me is showing the human aspect and humanizing an issue instead of it being contained only within sound bites that we hear in news. And I think that is a game changer. So when it comes to working from my own experiences, it is a process of delving into memories, of drawing them, and that process is so natural for me because nobody will know better than me, like nobody would know better than themselves, their own story or their background or what makes them tick. But for other people, that was a completely new ball game of interest, of intrigue, because now I get to speak to other people, draw something, and then show it to them, and you keep tweaking until they say, this is brilliant, or I never thought this, that something that represents me could be done so beautifully or something. I'm not saying that my work is beautiful, but I'm just saying sometimes they say nice things. I'm working on a plethora of things apart from my own works. Something that I've been getting into a lot over the past year is working with Japanese editors on a new form of manga called silent manga, where you tell stories without the use of words at all. There's a huge difference from the very beginning between manga storytelling and Western, like either French or American or British storytelling. And that is usually, the difference is steeped in how emotional the storytelling is. So a lot of the time when Japanese editors speak to me, they would say that American or Western storytelling, it's like the readers are audience watching a theater play happening. If you are drawing a manga, you are supposed to make the reader feel that they are first views or first person perspective, they are the character. They are going to, if you are not making them feel exactly what the character is feeling, then you are failing at that. And if you do that, if you are able to communicate and draw and tell a story in that way, you will never lose a reader, even if you don't use a single word. And the reason I am spending so much time exploring this medium and this style of storytelling, because it completely bangs open the door for creating stories that translate across the world without the crutches of, oh no, but translation, oh no, but this word here, oh, but this play on words will never translate well over there. However, emotions and people's thoughts and their struggles, their fears, the things that they laugh about, a lot of these things are universal. So why can't we tap into that, instead of sometimes like concentrating on clever wordplay or whatever. So to me, this is a huge set of stories that I'm investing in at the moment, because I just think it's fascinating as well. Of course, I'm still working on a very long story that I spoke to you about with Positive Negatives, and that was exploring the struggles and the lived experiences of undocumented young people who live in the UK, who came at a very, very young age or were born here, but then they do not have an actual status. And then they come to a legal age, or when they hit 18, suddenly they realize that, so we have a huge problem in the UK. It's quite a silent problem. There's a lot of stigma surrounding it. And it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to and working with these young people with their huge set of their loyalty and their heart towards the UK, but it's like you are living in a country that you see as home, but it does not see you as part of it. So it's been quite a really exciting challenge to juggle together several things. First of all, to show their determination or show the positive aspects without just showing them as victims, because people do not just want to see victimhood, or I think this is an often played trope that does not bode very well for people identifying with the characters. So yeah.